Here at 7:02, Election Day is here. That is our top story today, as voters can now cast their ballots for Iowa's primary election.
Yeah, the polls just opened at 7 a.m. a couple minutes ago. They close at 8 p.m. So we here at Local 5 want to get you set up if you're heading out to vote today. Local 5's Emma Stroner is live at the polls right now. Emma, tell us, what are you seeing out there? How can folks find their polling place?
Yeah, there's cars that pulled up. Some people were actually waiting for it to hit 7 o'clock so that they could head in. So we're starting to see some people come in. But if you're wondering where your polling place is, just go over to the Secretary of State's website, put in your address. That's going to give you the specific location that you can vote at today. Now, some locations have changed since the last primary, so that if that's your polling place, just scroll to the bottom. You'll find a list of places that have changed. Now, when you're heading to the polls, you need to make sure that you're actually eligible to vote. So what you're going to need to know, that means you're at least 17 years old and you'll be 18 by the general election, and then you're also a U.S. citizen as well as an Iowa resident. Now, you must be registered as a Democrat or Republican to vote today, but if you're not registered with either party, don't worry, you can change that at your polling place if you'd like to. And then also don't forget your ID and proof of where you live, as those two things are going to be essential today. Now, if you need to register, if you haven't registered yet, you'll also need to bring that proof of who you are, like a driver's license or passport, and proof of where you live, so something like a lease or a paycheck with your address on it. Now, if you can't bring one or either of those things, a registered voter can attest for you in this election, but for the general election, that will no longer be an option due to a law that's going into effect. Polk County Auditor Jamie Fitzgerald explains the process if you find yourself without an ID or proof of residence.
Right now, you can bring somebody that knows who you are. They have to be pre-registered. So they have to be in the registration system ahead of time. A lot of times you're looking at apartment 1, the apartment 2 neighbors have moved in, they've got a busy life, they haven't thought about registering. You can actually bring that voter in and you'll sign a sheet saying, I know who this voter is, this is who they are.
And when you get your ballot today, here are the races you're going to see. You've got governor, U.S. senator, U.S. representatives for all 4 of Iowa's House districts, state auditor, state treasurer, and then also county recorder and county attorney, secretary of state, secretary of agriculture, state senators in odd-numbered districts from 1 to 49, state representatives in districts 1 through 100, and then also some seats of county boards of supervisors. Now, something you can also do day of at the polls is change your party affiliation. So if you change your mind, you want to vote on the other side, that option will also be available to you. Now, there are some accommodations if you need them. One is an accessible voting machine. This is going to help you read and also fill in your ballot. And then also curbside voting. We actually just saw a sign for it right over there. What you can do, you can pull your car up, have some go in for you, and tell a staff member that you need to have the items that you need brought out to your car, so someone will do that for you. Those are just a couple of options that can get you set up and get you out voting today. Live in Des Moines, Emma Stroner, Local 5 News.
All right, Emma, thank you. And of course, this is a major election year for Iowa with multiple open seats across different levels of government.
So come the November midterms, we will have a new governor, a new U.S. senator, and at least 2 new U.S. representatives. So here's a breakdown of those ballots. Republicans have a jam-packed primary for the open governor's race. On the ballot, you'll see State Representative Eddie Andrews, U.S. Representative Randy Feenstra, businessman Zach Lane, former State Representative Brad Sherman, and former Director of Administrative Services, Adam Steen. Whoever wins that primary will go on to face State Auditor Rob Sand, who is running unopposed for the Democrats.
Now, Senator Joni Ernst decided not to run for re-election, so that's giving Iowa its first open Senate seat in many years. On the ballot for the Republicans is Congresswoman Ashley Hinson and former State Senator Jim Carlin. For the Democrats, you have State Representative Josh Turek and State Senator Zach Walz.
And here's a look at the House District 1 race, which covers majority of southeast Iowa, as well as places like Jasper, Marion, and Warren counties. For the Republicans, incumbent Representative Marionette Miller-Meeks is being challenged by marketing consultant David Pouch. On the Democrat side, former State Representative Christina Bohannon is facing University of Iowa healthcare worker Travis Terrell. There's also an open seat over in House District 2, which covers northeast Iowa. The seat is currently held by Republican Ashley Hinson, who is now running for U.S. Senate. For the Republicans, there's State Senator Charlie McClintock and former State Representative Joe Mitchell. For the Democrats, there's former State Representative Lindsey James, Clint Tweedball, who's the founder of the Matthew 25 nonprofit, and retired Army nurse Kathy Dolter.
Iowa's 3rd congressional district, which covers parts of southern and central Iowa, including Des Moines, has an uncontested primary. Republican Congressman Zach Nunn is running uncontested, and so is Democratic State Senator Sarah Trungariet. And finally, in District 4, that covers northwestern Iowa, so that includes parts of Boone, Story, and Marshall counties. There's an open seat there with Congressman Randy Feenstra now running for governor. Republican Chris McGowan, who is a veteran and political consultant, is running uncontested. Former state lawmaker Dave Dawson, retired nurse Stephanie Steiner, and educator Ashley Wolf-Turnabane are hoping to be the Democratic nominee. The polls again opened just a few moments ago. However, voters have been able to early vote since May 13th.
Local 5's JD Snover went out yesterday to ask some early voters what their priorities are and why primary elections are just as important as general elections.
Top issues for me were mental health. Yeah. I'd have to say property taxes and making sure that the younger generation has a chance to be able to live and thrive here in Iowa.
Talk about why it's just as important to vote now as it is in November.
Because this is really who your candidate is going to be. You don't really have a choice going forward who your candidate is. This is kind of your only time.
And with the governor's race being the most watched, a new poll is predicting an upset with the Republicans. JMC Analytics and Polling conducted this poll last week, asking a random sample of registered Republican voters about the statewide primary election. Now, the poll puts Zach Lane ahead of Randy Feenstra in the gubernatorial primary, with Lane receiving 24% of the vote and Feenstra trailing at 22%. It is important to note this poll was conducted before two key endorsements, President Trump endorsing Feenstra and Turning Point USA endorsing Lane.
And make sure to join us tonight because we will have live coverage of the primaries, including the results as they come in. Stream free extended coverage from 8 to 10 on We Are Iowa Plus. And also, if you need to feel more fully informed before you cast that ballot, you can check out our interviews with the candidates for governor and Senate. You can find that also right here on We Are Iowa Plus.